early in the history of the United States, there was a great discussion over where the capital city should be. And eventually, through a series of compromises, it was decided that the state of Maryland and the state of Virginia would both give some property, and they would make the District of Columbia. It would be 10 miles square and kind of in a diamond shape. And they mapped out the border of the federal city with a series of 40 stones. And these are actually the oldest federal monuments. 38 of the original stones still exist, and they're in kind of odd places, like somebody's front lawn, a McDonald's parking lot, church grounds. And recently I got to visit the southernmost stone, which is close to Alexandria, Virginia. And I thought it was interesting that by this stone, there was a plaque that had these words on it, I believe from a speech that was given when this stone was placed. And here's what it said: "May this stone long commemorate the goodness of God in those uncommon events which have given America a name among nations. Under this stone, may jealousy and selfishness be forever buried." And that was from 1791. Wouldn't it be wonderful if the history of our country was filled with the truth that jealousy and selfishness had been buried back in 1791? Don't you think that the way that we relate to people now, that some of the problems that we are having, that just the day-to-day conflicts that we see among people would be markedly different if we could put that jealousy and selfishness aside? But long before whoever said those words said them, Paul wrote these words to the Christians at Philippi: "Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind regard one another as more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others." And he goes on to say that we're to follow the example of Christ, to have the attitude of Christ, which was one certainly not of selfishness, but of selflessness. It was not one of pride and jealousy, but one of humility. So we may not be able to sort of put a banner over our whole country or our whole world that says, let's bury jealousy and selfishness under this stone. But we can certainly have that banner over our own lives. And we can pray each day that the Holy Spirit would help us to turn away from jealousy and selfishness as a motivation, and to turn toward the selflessness and humility that Christ demonstrated. So let's start our day today by asking God to make true of us an attitude, the attitude of Christ, that we would show his love, his humility, his selflessness to the world around us. Not so that they would think we're great people, but so that they would see our great God.